For those who haven't met, my name's Hayley. My role at QCC is Nature Organiser. I'll introduce other people who are facilitating tonight shortly. Before we get any further though, I just want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we're meeting on today. For me, that's the Jagera and Turrbal people, as well as, of course, acknowledge other custodians across Queensland where we live or work, both ourselves and our member groups. And it's important to acknowledge sovereignty was never ceded, and First Nations continue to connect to, manage and protect country. If you know which country you're on and want to acknowledge that in the chat, please do. I just want to introduce a few other people who are going to talk a little bit this evening as well. So we've got Maggie, our climate campaigner. We've also got Dave, our director, and Lucy, our secretary. And we're all part of the Reconciliation Action Plan Working Group within QCC. So just a couple of logistic things. So we're probably all fairly used to Zoom now, but just remember, keep yourself on mute if you're not talking, and feel free to use the chat as much as you want. As you already should be aware, we're recording this webinar. That way other volunteers or other member groups who couldn't make it can still watch it and get up to date as to where QCC is at. So tonight, so I'll shortly hand over to Maggie, who's going to talk a little bit around QCC's vision for reconciliation. And then we'll hand over to Lucy, who's going to run through how QCC has developed our Reconciliation Action Plan and what reconciliation is and the steps we're taking to reach our goals. Dave is also going to say a few words about QCC's reconciliation journey as well. And then later on, we'll have a short opportunity for people to share their reactions or what they're planning to do or are currently doing in relation to reconciliation as part of small breakout groups. And then we'll have and then we'll sort of have a quick report back on that and then wrap up, and then you can all go and eat your dinner if you haven't already. Great, well, I might hand over to Maggie and take it from there.
Hello everyone, welcome to my chaotic screen and thank you all for jumping on tonight. I'm calling in from Jinnabarra country, just northwest of Meanjin, Brisbane. And I really appreciate you all jumping on the call tonight to hear about QCC's reconciliation, the start of our reconciliation journey. I think you should be able to see my slides here. Perhaps I can make them a little bit bigger. Thanks, everyone. So I wanted to, I'm really lucky to be able to talk about this artwork that we have been able to purchase from a local Indigenous elder, a Jagera Turrbal Brisbane elder, Shannon Rusker. We've been really lucky to have him welcome us to country at a number of events, and this is a really beautiful artwork that he did. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the artwork. It reflects on reconciliation, bringing tribal country land and seascapes in connection to country across our state via the different colours. So blue represents the saltwater tribes, red, the Western Queensland tribes, yellow, the dusty plain tribes, and green, the rainforest tribes. The small U-shaped patterns in the yellow are the many tribes that lived in the state. At the other end is the bigger U-shaped design, is the new people that arrived in the colony that was born. Although attention draws to the colour red, it's symbolic of the rivers of blood, a term used in truth-telling in depicting some of the atrocities that have occurred in our history here in so-called Australia. The green section is 3 separate dot circles, and these represent stages of our country: the creation of First Nations people, the arrival of new people, and reconciliation, and the path we are heading in, forging relationships together tomorrow. So we were really lucky to get to talk with Shannon about the artwork, and it's displayed on the front of our Reconciliation Action Plan. Lucy, who has been a key part of QCC's committee and family for a long time, will talk more about how that reconciliation journey started. But I first wanted to share QCC's vision for reconciliation. So reconciliation is that the history, knowledge and culture of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people is fully valued and respected in Australia and within our collective work to protect country. In our work to protect this country, Queensland Conservation Council will work towards a future in which our organisations, as well as the broader environmental conservation movement in Queensland, celebrates and acknowledges First Nations culture and knowledge, stands in solidarity and supports self-determination of Australia's First Peoples, centres First Nations voices, particularly when our projects are central to country, embraces the connection between First Nations and environmental groups, and acknowledges the colonial history of conservation and the significantly longer time that First Nations people have protected this land. So that's why we really wanted to get member groups and volunteers and members of our member groups committees together on this call tonight. And the purpose of recording it is so that it can be a resource if it's useful for groups in starting their own reconciliation journeys. And we've already been in touch with a number of member groups who are really keen to learn themselves how to get started on that journey and seek any information from QCC that we're able to provide. Awesome. Thanks, everyone. I'll stop sharing screen there and hand back to Lucy. Sorry, perhaps Dave.
Yeah, get everyone. So I think everyone knows me. I'm Dave. I'm the director at QCC. I guess the thing I wanted to say briefly is this work is really important to QCC. It's part of our strategic plan. It is essential if we are going to achieve our mission, and our vision is that we actually learn and do differently. I mean, there's been a really long history of the environment movement and First Nations working together, working in opposition, having bad relations, having good relations, but there's so much potential that we have going forward to be more powerful, to be more just, to actually move past a lot of the lies or the misinformation or the kind of stuff that has formed and shaped our attitudes as we've grown up in this colonial system. And so I guess as the director, while others have taken a huge amount of lead in terms of bringing tonight together and working on this, it is something that is shared across the organisation, and we're really, really committed to it, and we're really keen to see it progress and benefit from the opportunities of actually working in a different way that's more powerful, more effective, more just, and moves beyond some of the worst parts of what we were handed in the colonial legacy. So I just wanted to say that and then hand back to Maggie.
Thanks so much, Dave. Yeah, Dave has also been part of the journey in starting a Reflect Reconciliation plan with QCC. And yeah, even in the 1 year that I've been at QCC, we've seen a lot of developments in how we form the plan, how we enact the plan in our day-to-day work. And I feel really lucky to have been part of the start of this journey of QCC. I'm going to hand back over to the wonderful Lucy to start running through that journey with you all.
Hi everyone, I'm just going to share my screen, hopefully successfully. Can you all see reconciliation at QCC? Great. So I am wearing my secretary hat tonight as the secretary of the Queensland Conservation Council. Many of you probably know me also from my role at the Cairns and Far North Environment Centre as a member group. So I feel really lucky to help with this work as the secretary and learn as the director as well. And thanks to everyone who's here tonight. So I'm going to run you through a little bit of how we got here and where we're going. And we'll have some time for questions at the end. So feel free to pop them in the chat as we go, or just think in your head and then we'll have time later. So as Dave said, like working with First Nations people across Queensland is not necessarily a new thing for the conservation movement. And, you know, in the early days, there was some really amazing green-black alliances. And there's been work with our First Nations people for a long time in the movement, but that hasn't necessarily come with like the amount of justice and equality as we would have liked necessarily. So, and we know that we've always got work to do. But reconciliation had already started at QCC a while ago, and in our constitution you can see that we have there that we fully recognise the native title rights and traditional land relationships of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, and to work in consultation with rightful Indigenous communities in regards to identification, protection and the management of the conservation values of traditional lands and waters. We have for a long time worked alongside Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander advocates, and more recently our most recent strategic plan has also, as Dave alluded to, included a really core part around moving beyond colonial practices. And I think, you know, in a lot of this kind of work, it really evolves over time, and you know that you're doing well if you continue to reflect and grow as the world continues to grow in its understanding of, you know, what a just society looks like. So, you know, we know that Objective 14 in our constitution could probably be a bit more nuanced and, you know, a bit broader in areas, and we're looking at that. But particularly the strategic plan, moving beyond colonial practices, gave us a bit more premise to do some more deeper work on this issue. And that came not just from the staff and the executive of QCC, but, you know, from we did really deep engagement across our network. I'm sure many of us remember the many conversations that were had during that strategic planning period. So it has come from across our broader network. It wasn't a small decision to do a reconciliation action plan, and I'm sure lots of different people have lots of varied opinions about reconciliation action plans, and they can be known to be a bit of a like write a policy and put it on the shelf. You know, it is known that there are, you know, corporations out there who could be living the values of their reconciliation action plans more than they do, you might say. But there was a number of reasons why we ended up deciding to do a reconciliation action plan. We could see that our organisation was growing quite quickly and in really positive ways, and we wanted something that had a clear structure around it and support for us to guide us in how to implement change. It's an accountable process that we have to, you know, report on, that we have to make progress on, and that we have to continue to grow through. So we have external accountability to our commitments, and it's not sort of operating invisibly within our organisation. But we also agreed that we wanted to remain action oriented, and that our RAP was always going to be more than just a document. And so while we're launching our RAP tonight publicly, we have actually we began implementing a lot of that work from the moment that we had our draft and that we were reviewing it with our consultants, and we know that there's lots of work that we can do that doesn't require us to have, you know, the formal approval from Reconciliation Australia, and they were really excited by the proactive approach that we had. So we're going to talk through what's in our RAP, but there is a bunch that we've already started on with, and we really wanted to make sure that we're also able to share this with all of our network across Queensland and be mentors, I guess you could say, in helping people continue to do this work. And we know that a lot of our member groups in our network are doing different types of reconciliation work in different ways, and we really want to have those conversations with our members and network and help us all learn together as we go. I'm going to just briefly show this video. You know what, I'm going to stop sharing because I don't think I shared with audio, and that's a bummer, so I'll just do that quickly. This is just a couple of minutes, but it was from the State of Reconciliation Australia report. I do, you know, want to preempt this by saying, like, some stuff in here is a bit heavy, but we wanted to start with this to remind us of why this work is so important and give us the context of what we're trying to move through together. Just give me a thumbs up if you can hear this, Maggie. The sound doesn't come through till after the reconciliation. Sorry, the acknowledgement bit.
For over 80,000 years, the world's oldest continuing culture has thrived on this land. Colonisation has taken much away, but Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples have fought for culture and community, fought for justice and respect, and fought for a better future. This resilience and determination has shaped Australia's story. How the next chapters will be written rests in all of our hands. As a brave new era for reconciliation unfolds, bold and meaningful actions will lead the way. Progress has been steady, but there's more we need to do. Racism still harms many communities. More than 50% of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people have experienced at least one form of racism in the last 6 months. So let's tackle prejudice and make relationships stronger. There's frustration and anguish when politicians and leaders drag the chain. We need governments to step up now for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. The gaps in health, justice, education and employment are still significant. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people must have access to the same opportunities as other Australians. Addressing the wrongs of the past is more difficult when we don't care, don't want to think about it, or just want it all to go away. But big change starts small, and every one of us can play a part. The great thing is, most of us do care and want to do something positive about reconciliation. Over 90% of Australians feel the relationship between Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and non-Indigenous Australians is important. The vast majority believes that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples should have a say in matters that affect them. More people than ever before are ready to explore the hard truths, with almost 90% supporting formal truth-telling processes in relation to Australia's shared history. There's huge support for the voice to Parliament, as outlined in the Uluru Statement from the Heart. As a nation, we are proud and inspired by Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures. And importantly, most Australians believe national unity is possible. As our nation's story unfolds, the small actions we take will have effects far and wide. Every positive step builds a better future. A future that's more equitable. A future that's more just. A future that's more hopeful. Your voice can make a difference, and it all starts with being braver. So call out racism wherever you find it. Question the media if what they're saying isn't right. Challenge leaders to act on injustices. Learn more about Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures and histories, and help drive reconciliation among your friends, family, and in your workplace. Our path is clear. Together, we can make a better Australia, where we celebrate our rich history and diverse cultures, and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples are respected and empowered. Your brave actions will lead us to a just, equitable, and reconciled Australia.
Still muted. It's 2022 and still doing it. So that video was released this year during Reconciliation Week. And so the statistics that you heard in that are relevant to this year. What I was saying on mute is it's very moving music. I'd love to watch that in cinema one day. And I get a little bit emotional watching that because I think, you know, it is true that there's a lot, you know, lots of those small things that we can do, but also because Australia has moved forward just in this year since that video was released, and we're seeing a government that's taking more action. And, you know, we are all leaders in this room of some form. We wouldn't be here if we weren't. And so, you know, this is our job, is that driving that reconciliation. And, you know, I think that video talks about a lot of different systemic issues that are associated with what can come from reconciliation and what comes from the opposite. And I know that by taking action in conservation, we can actually do things like improve health and well-being, you know, improve people's physical and emotional health, all kinds of stuff. So I think the exciting thing is that the work that we do will have impacts in lots of different areas and not just in the conservation of nature. So I'm going to run through the RAP, the Reflect RAP that we have, not in a great detail, but also the Reconciliation Action Plan Working Group at QCC is happy to jump into detail. So just know that if you don't get it tonight, we're always happy to chat more. There's several stages of reconciliation action plans, and the first is a Reflect RAP, and that's what we're launching tonight. And a Reflect RAP really looks at where are you up to? What is the current status quo with your workplace, your organisation, your networks, and what is the good, the bad, and the ugly, effectively, right? And what are the first things that you want to do to help everyone in that organisation and network understand that and start working towards, you know, change. So as Maggie highlighted earlier, our vision is for vision for reconciliation is that the history, knowledge and culture of Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people is fully valued and respected in Australia and within our collective work to protect country. A Reflect RAP consists of 4 key areas: the relationships that our organisation has externally and internally, the respect that we hold and how we embody that, the opportunities that we provide for reconciliation, and the governance that we embed in our organisation to ensure that we are promoting reconciliation within our work. So now what I'm going to talk you through are the key actions in each of those areas, and each of these actions have a number of very specific sub-actions that we're reporting on underneath them, but I didn't want to like talk for a long time. So we're going to establish and strengthen mutually beneficial relationships with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander stakeholders. And that's really talking about, you know, not going out to everyone and putting ourselves on them, but where we have really productive relationship opportunities, making sure we're embracing them and building those strong relationships. We're going to be participating in National Reconciliation Week, as well as the NAIDOC Week and those other really important moments, National Sorry Day, that really help us build relationships and, knowledge around that history that we have, promoting reconciliation through our sphere of influence, aka things like tonight, and in lots of different areas we participate, and promoting positive race relations through anti-discrimination strategies, and that's really about how we make sure we have really culturally safe spaces, and we're creating culturally safe spaces so that our relationships can, you know, what do you call, prosper maybe, and be the best that they can be, because we've set up really positive race relations in the spaces that we have. I'm going to keep going through and get questions at the end. Respect. So, you know, in that video, there was a, you know, and in what Maggie and Hayley and Dave had said tonight is we do have a truth-telling process that we still need to go through in Australia, and that is still happening. So, you know, we want to really increase the understanding, value and recognition of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures, history, knowledge and rights through cultural learning. So making sure we're giving and getting opportunities to learn where it's appropriate. That we are demonstrating respect through observing cultural protocols, and cultural protocols aren't homogenous across all different Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander groups. So really working specifically with the different people that we will be talking to, and making sure we know what those protocols are. Like I said, we'll be building the respect for the culture and histories through NAIDOC Week. And we'll be promoting our reconciliation journey through our administrative processes. That sounds a little bit boring, but that's that really important sort of how our everyday things like sending emails or having websites, or, you know, being at meetings, and we're acknowledging country and doing all of those seemingly small but incredibly important things throughout our work that demonstrates respect and acknowledgement of this place that we have colonized. Opportunities, so improving employment outcomes by increasing Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander recruitment, retention and professional development. So we are, you know, doing things like working on identified positions and positive recruitment and things like that. We're increasing Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander supply diversity using Supply Nation, which is an incredible resource, and other techniques as well. We're working to increase our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander membership of our network, and promoting and supporting First Nations land management practices, which obviously has a really important role in the conservation of nature and that on-ground element of all of our work. Governance is a really big one, so establishing and maintaining an effective working group, which I think a lot of us are really excited about, and you know, is definitely the highlight of my work with QCC at the moment, that meets monthly to keep progressing this plan and organise events like today. Providing appropriate support for effective implementation of our commitments. So that's really making sure that we're not just like, this isn't just an afterthought or an add-on to our work planning or annual planning, that this is a core part of our work and a core part of our planning. And building accountability and transparency through our reporting, and sharing them, you know, externally, so as well as internally. So when we come to review our RAP, when we think we've ready to move to the next stage after reflecting, we will be publicly sharing our progress and what we're doing, and hopefully having more webinars like this in the future. And continue our reconciliation journey by developing our next RAP. So there's 4 stages. This is just stage 1, but so this is not just a, you know, a year-long commitment. This is a multi-year commitment, and we are doing work to really instill funding within our model, so that there is finances and funding of our organisation put to making sure this is a priority going forward. I wanted to also talk about just some of the other valuable resources that have helped inform our RAP and approach. We're not, you know, for us, it's like we have a reconciliation action plan, but that doesn't mean we can't go above and beyond. So when there's opportunities to do more than what our RAP is asking for us, we're doing as much as we can. So you've got a bunch of valuable resources that you can reach out to us for if you would like to explore how your group or yourself might do this, which is with our working group with Reconciliation Australia, and their recruitment handbook has some really interesting stuff in there about how to have good recruitment policies. Message Stick is an incredible online resource I really encourage you all to have a look at, talking about not having a deficit-based approach and language around working with First Nations people. The Canna Principles of Solidarity is something that QCC has signed up for as a Canna member, and if you are a part of the Canna network, I would really encourage you to have a look at those and potentially endorse them as well. And the Australian Conservation Foundation did its own internal report on this, which they shared with us, which has been fundamental in helping us, you know, understand this journey and where we wanted to go as well. And before I hand back to Maggie, you know, we are really passionate about helping in whatever way we can to promote this same kind of work. It doesn't have to be a RAP, and certainly for some of the smaller groups, a RAP is probably not the kind of process that would be resource friendly, if I could say it that way. And so, but we're really happy to do briefings for any of the boards of our member groups or partner organisations about, you know, similar to this, about our own journey. We're keen to help our people attend events during those really important weeks like Reconciliation Week and NAIDOC Week, and so can help you find what's going on in your area. We really encourage people to connect with First Nations people by showing up at whatever they're doing in your area. And that's often people don't know where to start, but one thing we've all learned is just like, if we want people to be a part of our work, we have to be a part of other people's worlds. So taking the time to go and be a part of other people's important moments. And then the last thing is, you know, just allowing some space in your organization to facilitate some reflection. And it might be, you know, starting with like getting people together in your organization and watching this recording or similar things like that. And I think I might stop sharing because the next slide is Maggie's. And I could see there was some resources shared in the Slack, and I'll go and find that link for Message Stick now. But that's sort of a very broad overview of how we got here and where we are now, and what's driving us forward.